Hi, thank you for joining me. Welcome. Greetings from Asheville, North Carolina, Busby Mountain to be precise. And I'm glad you could join me for my second episode of my weekly live stream. Since this is the anniversary week of Doc Ellis throwing his no hitter while under the influence of LSD, I thought I would lead off with this song. It was a lovely summer's morning, an off day in L.A. So thought one Doc Ellis, as he would later say. His girlfriend read the paper, she said, "Doc, this can't be right. It says here that you're pitching in San Diego tonight. We got to get you to the airport." So off Doc Ellis flew. His legs were a little bit wobbly and the rest of him was too. Took a taxi to the ballpark an hour before the game. Gave a half-assed explanation, found the locker with his name. The organ in the upper deck played all the schmaltzy hits. You could hear it in the clubhouse while Doc was getting dressed. His sunglasses he reached for from his locker in a case. Doc Ellis put his jersey on, then he put them on his face. Time came to go on out there, down the corridor. The walls were a little bit wavy and there were ripples in the floor. Went out to the bullpen to do a bunch of stretches, loosen up a little, throw some warm-up pitches. All rose for the national anthem. People took off their hats. Fireworks were exploding and the cokes were already going flat. Doc was back there in the dugout. So many things to watch. Some players spit tobacco juice and others grabbed their crotch. Then the umpire hollered, "Play ball," and so it came to be. Doc's Pirates batted first when they went down 1-2-3. Doc's catcher put his mask on and he handed Doc the ball, and it was 327 feet to the left and right field walls. So Doc's Pirates took the field then, and Doc stood on the rubber, and he bounced a couple of pitches, and he bounced a couple of others. You might say about that day that he looked a little wild. The leadoff batter trembled, and nobody knew why. Doc Ellis smiled. Well, you walk 8 and you hit a guy, oh, the things that people shout, especially the manager, but he did not take Doc out. Doc found himself a rhythm and a crazy little spin. Amazing things would happen when Doc Ellis zeroed in. Sometimes he saw the catcher, sometimes he did not. Sometimes he held a beach ball, other times it was a dot. Doc was tossing comets that were leaving trails of glitter. In the 7th inning stretch, he still had his no-hitter. So it turns to Cash, his buddy, says, "I got a no-no going." Speaking the unspeakable, and he goes back out there throwing. Bottom of the 9th, and he stood high upon the mound. 3 more outs to go, and he'd have his name in Cooperstown. Well, first up was Canizaro, and he flied out to a loo. Then Kelly grounded out for Dean, and the shortstop yelled, "That's a 2." Must have been a madhouse, fans upon their feet. Littler ones among them were standing on their seats. Well, that would have brought up Herbo, but Spezio pinch hit, and he took a third strike looking, and officially that was it. It was a lovely summer's morning, an off day in L.A. So thought one Doc Ellis, as he would later say. I have to tell you a funny story. I first learned about that incident when I was in college, and I had some baseball cards at the time, and the Top Set put out a series called In Action. Certain players were in action. They had the regular card and their in action card. And I had a Doc Ellis card in college, and so I taped onto it on acid. And I still have that card all these years later. Before I sing another song, I just want to say how grateful I am that my friend Barbie Angel
is part of this broadcast today. She is our digital concierge. She'll be dropping in URLs for you in the chat windows for some of the things that I talk about. And she'll respond to any issues that you might have with sound or whatever. But Barbie Angel, in her own right, is quite an artist. She is an outstanding poet, and for the last 8 or 9 years running, she has been voted the best poet in Western North Carolina by the weekly music magazine, the Arts and Entertainment magazine, the Reader's Poll. She's also a great performance artist, so you might want to check her out, Barbie Angel with 2 L's. Now, this is the time of year that the Kerrville Folk Festival happens down in Texas, and ordinarily that's where I would be. I've gone every year since 1992 with just 2 exceptions. Kerrville's an 18-day long folk festival, if you can imagine that, and it's a singer-songwriter festival. It's really a celebration of songs and songwriting and songwriters. And before I sing this song, which is based in Kerrville, I just want to let you know that after I'm done today, later on this evening, the Kerrville Folk Festival is broadcasting a special show from their website. It's an all-star lineup of performers they've had over the years. We've each contributed a video and a little greeting, and I am very fortunate and very honored to say that I was among those chosen, and I'm very excited about that. The Kerrville Folk Festival will be celebrating their 50th year next May, and they had to move this year's festival to October. Fingers crossed it'll happen. So about 25 years ago, I had a girlfriend named Annie, and we went down from North Carolina to the Kerrville Folk Festival together and stayed all 18 days. And there came a point, obviously, where we needed to replenish our supplies, head into town, do some errands. And on our way in, we saw a man selling peaches off the back of his truck over on the shoulder of the road. Now, no offense to anybody from South Carolina or Georgia, your peaches are wonderful too. But Fredericksburg, Texas peaches are something special, and we had to have some. It was 100 degrees that day, and I don't like heat very much. We were in an air-conditioned vehicle, and we wanted to just buy our peaches and get back on our way. But the man selling the peaches was somebody that liked to talk. One of those people that just goes on and on and on, tangent after tangent. And I guess I hit my limit, because I started to take little baby steps backwards towards the car, hoping he'd read my body language. But no, he maintained the exact same distance, and as I backed away, he continued to follow me and keep on talking. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, he apologized because he had not introduced himself. And this is a very southern thing. I had only just moved to North Carolina. I'd lived my entire life up north, and this was very foreign to me. But, you can meet my cat, Poppy. She's just been hopping up on my chair here. So anyway, I get it now, having lived in the South for 25 years. That's how people are. But it was very foreign to me back then, and this man was just feeling so awful, apologizing all over himself because he hadn't introduced himself. And he told us his name was Bill, and I said, nice to meet you, Bill. I'm Chuck. This is Annie. And he said, Annie, huh? I had a woman in my life once named Annie. And he started this whole new story, which I'm sure made me roll my eyes and sigh very deeply, but I caught something different in the tone of his voice and the look in his eye that said, pay attention. I'm glad I did, because he told me this.
We stopped for peaches, little roadside stand. Man said his name was Bill. Said, I'm Chuck and this is Annie. He said Annie was the one and only true love of his life. They met at his wedding, but by then he had a wife. It was during the reception in the spring of '64, and she, his newlywed's best friend, followed him out the barroom door. Maybe his ring got smaller, maybe his fingers swelled, maybe he made a big mistake, maybe time would tell. Bill asked, do you feel what I feel? Nanny said, I do. And Bill was at a loss, wondering now, what should he do? He did what he had to. He'd just taken a wife. She would take good care of him for the rest of her life. Bill and Annie fought the urge. They saw each other often. Well, she was there in black the day Bill's wife lay in her coffin. By then she'd gotten married. By then she'd moved away. She'd asked Bill for his blessings. He'd said it was okay. Well, Bill said, taste the peaches. And he cut us each a slice. They were a little on the small side, but they sure tasted nice. Do you think I did the right thing, Bill asked, though I knew he knew. So I answered with a question. Asked him, Bill, do you? Well, he said, Annie, pleased to meet you. Nice to meet you, Chuck. Nanny and I drove away in Annie's pickup truck with a box of 20 peaches, a homegrown tomato too, and a couple of things to think about, and every now and then I do.
So I think I will switch fruits and move on to apples from peaches. Back in my 20s, I worked in orchards for several years, picking fruit. And I was working up in Wenatchee, Washington, just outside of Wenatchee, a little town called Malaga, picking apples. And I was the only picker that was not an illegal from Mexico. And so I didn't have to worry about what they did, which was the immigration police that would come around periodically trying to catch these people. And when they did, they would take them to a detention center in Wenatchee, and when there were enough of them to fill a bus, they'd send that bus down to Mexico. And a week later, everybody would be back picking again. But because I didn't have to worry about the immigration police like my friends did, I was free to go on picking. But we had a signal amongst ourselves should the immigration police, which in Spanish is called la Migra, if they should ever show up, whoever saw them first would give the whistle. And next thing you know, everybody was jumping off of their ladders, dropping their fruit sacks to the ground, and running into the trees and disappearing for a while. And la Migra would come find me on my ladder and ask me where did everybody go. And I would say, well, how should I know? And they'd leave. And 5 minutes later, everybody would be back on their ladders picking away. And I wrote the song for my friends. It's called La Migra Viene, which means the immigration police are coming. And the other Spanish word in it is andale, and that means run.
Mornings are chilly, the air was crisp as a striped or a red or a golden delicious. Cold tortillas, coffee with rum. By the time the sun came up, we'd have half been done. Trees were like temples, was a holiness to 'em. Picked out the bottoms and then all the way through 'em. Up on a ladder, out on a limb. Trees were like temples and I loved being in 'em. Fernando amazed me, he was the quickest. 18 bends in a day he could do. I got 9 once, but that was with big fruit. Only worked as hard as I needed to. Sometimes, though, on the nicest of days, somebody would whistle and my friends would run away. They were yelling, la migra, la migra, la migra vieni. Andale, andale, run, run. Oh, they leapt from the ladders to the next nearest orchards, spreading the word that the migra was coming. My Spanish was stiff and a little too formal. I cracked them up and they taught me to cuss. Even better was cussing when they all went running. Even better was cussing at the big yellow bus. Van brought him in till the bus was loaded. Sometimes whole families, well, at least he'd have thought, they'd be back the next week up on their ladders, giving new names the next time they got caught. Sometimes, though, on the nicest of days, somebody would whistle and my friends would run away. They were yelling, la migra, la migra, la migra vieni. Andale, andale, run, run. Oh, they leapt from the ladders to the next nearest orchards, spreading the word that la migra was coming. La migra, la migra, la migra vieni. Andale, andale, run, run. Oh, they leapt from the ladders to the next nearest orchards, spreading the word that la migra was coming.
This next song has a great story behind it. It's about a man whose name was Adolfo Kaminsky. And Adolfo passed away last year at the age of 94. When he was a teenager, late teenager, he was working in the garment industry in Paris. This was during World War II. And he had developed a scientific knowledge of inks and dyes and fabrics. And he was an expert in his field. And he came to the attention of the partisan movement, who needed somebody to forge documents and passports. And they realized he was their man. And so they recruited him under the utmost secrecy. He was not even able to tell his wife and his daughter what he was doing. He had one single handler in the partisan movement that he would meet with and communicate with. And he would be given his assignments, and the next day he would show up and turn them in. And his assignments were often absolutely impossible. Like sometimes they would tell him they need 200 passports by the next morning. And he never failed to deliver. He was able to forge 30 passports in an hour. But then he realized for every hour he might sleep, it would cost 30 people their lives. So he didn't sleep. He would work through the entire night, and often he would just pass out from exhaustion. And whenever it was that he came to again, he'd get right back out, right back up to work, and always delivered those documents. And it wasn't until he was at the age of 89 that he decided he couldn't take this to the grave with him. He needed to tell somebody. And so he told his daughter, Sarah, and Sarah Kaminsky wrote a great book called A Forger's Life, and this is it in case you want to take a look at it. But I read a review of the book and I decided to buy it, and it inspired me to write this song. This is called The Forger.
Up on the 3rd floor, I used to rent a room. I got no fresh air. You could get dizzy from the fumes. I'd spend the nights in there. Baby, I'd sleep a few winks. Clear a place somewhere between the papers and the inks. I had a printing press. It was my Tommy gun. I dreamed I'd ambush them whenever it would run. I couldn't shoot a man this was what I could do. And with my documents, the guards would have waved them through. I didn't know them, I never met them, but how could I turn away and just forget them? Still can picture some of their faces. They were desperate to leave for safer places. I was an artisan, a counterfeiter. I had a steady hand, didn't get the jitters. One day the partisans told me my skills were needed, 'cause there was madness on the rise that had to be defeated. I doctored names, altered their ages. I put a different place of birth upon the pages. I made them businessmen, I made them teachers. I made them someone else with all the same features. I didn't know them, I never met them, but how could I turn away and just forget them? I still can picture some of their faces. They were desperate to leave for safer places. I'd meet my handler in busy cafes. We would trade envelopes and go our separate ways. No time for small talk, too many lives at stake. Passports to reproduce, all night I'd be awake. I worked in secrecy, nobody knew of this, not even my daughter or my wife. There was just too much risk. They said I worked too much, I couldn't tell them why. But now I have to tell someone before I die. I didn't know them, I never met them, but how could I turn away and just forget them? I still can picture some of their faces. They were desperate to leave for safer places. I didn't know them, I never met them, but how could I turn away and just forget them? I still can picture some of their faces.
So, I would really love to know where you're all watching from. If you wouldn't mind putting that in the comments, I'd love to read them. I'm going to read all the comments later after the show. I can't see them now. That's why Barbie is helping me, so she can respond if there's anything urgent. But I'll read them all later. And I just would love to know where you're all watching from. Last week we had people watching from 12 different countries. There were folks from Ireland and England and Denmark, Norway, Italy, Germany, Australia, Uganda, and South Africa, all over the US and Canada, and possibly elsewhere. So it'd be fun knowing. This week is also the anniversary of something that happened in baseball a few years back. Very unfortunate incident, actually. Pitcher pitcher by the name of Armando Galarraga was 1 out away from a perfect game. It would have been the 21st perfect game in Major League history. And on that final, what would have been the final out, there was a ground ball hit. And the umpire at first base, Jim Joyce, called the batter safe at first. And this was before instant replay was in effect to overturn calls. And it wasn't until after the game that he was able to see that he had blown the call and cost this kid a perfect game. And so Jim Joyce did an amazing thing. He called for the pitcher to please come by his dressing room so that he could apologize to him. And Jim Joyce faced the press, and he stood up, and he took everything that came his way, and he did it with class. And so I wrote this song to honor him. It's called Stand Up Guy.
Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. Listen to me, and I'll tell you why. He made a mistake, and it made him cry, and he didn't go fishing for an alibi. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Pitcher was thrown a perfect game, got the first 2 outs, the final frame. Ball was hit, he won the race. He caught the throw with his foot on the base. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Joyce called the batter safe at first, a putrid call, the all-time worst, a travesty. The guy was out, the replay showed beyond a doubt. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. And with half a smile to mask his grief, the pitcher stood in disbelief. He never lost his dignity. His eyes, though, said, "You're kidding me." Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. There still was one more out to get. The game wasn't over yet. It should have been. He caught the throw with plenty of time. But there you go, Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. In the locker room, Joyce watched the tape and left them all bent out of shape. He sat a while, alone, distressed, outside the door, the bloodthirsty press. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. I cost that kid a perfect game. He stood up sobbing and took the blame. I was convinced of what I saw. I just missed the bleeping call. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. He called for the pitcher to please come by. He face-to-face apologized. Jim Joyce's tears were Texas-sized. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, nobody's perfect, the pitcher would say in an interview. The very next day, he's only human. He made a mistake, and I hope everybody will cut him a break. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, the ump had an imperfect game. It happens sometimes, and it's a shame. But all you can do is stand up tall and say you're sorry you blew the call. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Well, Jim Joyce, he's a stand-up guy. There's something no one can deny. He made a mistake, and it made him cry, and he didn't go fishing for an alibi. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy. Jim Joyce, stand-up guy.
There is a place that's very dear to me up in Nova Scotia. Well, actually, I love the entire province. But there is a place in Nova Scotia, a little tiny community. It's at the end of the earth, literally. It's a little community called Canso, Nova Scotia. And once upon a time, it was a thriving fishing community of 8,000 people, maybe more. But all the fish, all the cod was fished out of those waters there. And the fishing industry collapsed. Just the lobster and the crab fishermen these days are really able to make a living. So people had to move away for work. A lot of people moved out to Alberta, work in the oil fields and such. And Today, about 700 or 800 people live in Canso, but it's the home of the Stan Rogers Folk Festival, which is an amazing folk festival with so much heart. And the community up there has so much heart. They're amazing folks. They would give you the backs right out of their shirts. I've seen it. And so I've been there many times over the years. And there was one time, it must be at least 10 years ago now, possibly even longer, when the most amazing thing happened. I was on stage singing, and there was a fella out in the audience who was standing there blowing kisses at me. And I just thought, But the stage lights were really bright in my eyes. I couldn't see anything other than like the silhouettes of people. But it occurred to me I could shield my eyes, and when I did that, people's features came into focus, and that's when I could tell that he had a developmental disability. And so from that point on, I started to blow kisses back to him in between songs. And he just did this the entire 40 minutes I was on stage. So in between every song, I'd blow kisses back at him. And this was something everybody was in on. It was magical. It was really special. And I knew, as I was standing there doing my performance, I just knew that I was going to write this song as soon as I got back home, which I did. And I sent it up to the folks that run the festival, who are friends of mine. And they decided to bring me back the very next year so that the community could hear me sing the song. But what they didn't tell me they were doing was that they had arranged with the home that this fella, his name was Arthur Christie, a very beloved human being in their community. Everybody grew up with him and knew him. And anyway, they had invited Arthur back to the festival. They contacted the home that he lived in. They had him brought back. And as a surprise to me, when I was up on stage, I got a few verses into that song, this song that I wrote about him. And they brought him out on stage behind me to blow kisses at the audience. I'm going to show you a picture here. I hope you can see it. But this is, that's Arthur. And that's in mid-song. There's a great YouTube video of it as well. So it's a very, very special moment in my life, and I have a lot of dear friends up there. In fact, the entire community is very dear to me. So I know some of you are listening from Canso and from Guysborough County. So hats off to you folks. This is for you, the man who blew kisses.
Kisses stood out in the crowd. He wasn't so tall and he wasn't loud. I could not tell you how he was dressed, but of everyone there, I remember him best. A man who blew kisses was simple and free. He never considered how people might see him. He walked on the water, swam through the air, with no trepidation, without a care. A man who blew kisses, he lived in a home. He wasn't allowed to go out on his own, but wherever they'd take him, he was happy to go. He loved everybody, and he let them all know. A man who blew kisses, he blew them at me. It tickled my heart, and I buckled my knee. Made my voice crack, and it righted all wrongs. And I blew kisses back at the end of the songs. In front of the stage, knew nothing of jealousy and nothing of rage, nothing of prejudice, nothing of shame. He had never been broken, he had never been tamed. The man who blew kisses, he misses some things, but he was catching my drift. He had air in his wings. His head was a-rockin', he was clapping his hands. He was stomping his feet and he was doing a dance. The man who blow kisses eats tulips for lunch. And probably rainbows, but that's just a hunch. Sunshine and pixie dust mixed with his punch. And daisies for breakfast he picks by the bunch. The man who blow kisses, he'll blow them at you. He blows them at anyone, no matter who. And so I thought to myself, in the middle of all this, that the song I was singing, it was but a kiss.
If you have seen me in concert anytime over the last several years, or if you caught last week's live stream, you'd have heard me talk about the Lamb's Retreat for songwriters up in Harbor Springs, Michigan, which is something that is also very dear to me. I've taught on the staff there several times, but I go every year that I can, regardless of whether or not I'm on staff. It just so happens to take place right around the time that I tend to tour up there. And it's just been wonderful for me. I've written so many songs there. Probably 80% of all the songs I've written over the last 10 years have been up there. And I always get the same room, so that room's pretty special, pretty magical for me. And, well, if you're a songwriter or somebody interested in learning about songwriting, I couldn't recommend it more highly, because it's something that is for everybody, really, all different levels. You don't have to be a great songwriter to get something out of it. And it's a great bunch of folks in that community. What I love about the retreat is that we're all given a songwriting assignment, and each one is unique. Each one is well thought through by John Lamb, the director, and even the staff has to do it. You have 48 hours to write your song. And through the years, I've had several of these songs end up being songs I've recorded and that I do in my live shows. This one here, the premise of it was that I was supposed to write a song about playing ping pong with my dad, and when that day finally came, when I was able to beat him as a kid. And John Lamb didn't know this, but we actually had a ping pong table in our cellar, and Dad and I used to play every night. So I wrote this song for my dad. So, obviously, this is one of two of his favorites of mine, the other one being the other song I wrote about him.
When I was a little feller, ping pong table in the cellar, every night just after dinner, he used to let me be the winner. The ones that could get over the net, he'd pretend like he could not get. Deliberately he'd hit them wide, but only barely missed the sides. And everything he'd hit real soft, he could turn it on and off. But just to show me that he could, he'd almost hit one through the wood. My daddy was a champion, me, I was his only son. He taught me everything he knew, and I've shown him a thing or two. He played the ball with lots of spin, taught me how to serve like him. I was 11, maybe 10, starting to play a little better then. Then I started talking trash, finally he'd met his match. 16, maybe 17, taut as the net was between us. He'd slam one and I'd slam one, and he'd slam one and I'd slam one, and he'd slam another, I'd slam another, back and forth attacking each other. It was spin and counterspin, neither could let the other win. Things would never be the same when I learned to beat him at his game. But now we play like gentlemen, volley back and forth again. neither of us keeping score. We don't need to anymore. Now I don't want to slam it all. Don't want him to have to chase the ball. Let's just keep this thing in play. That's the whole point anyway.
I'd like to play this next song for a few of my friends out there. In particular for Lee Bowers and for Chip Raymond and for Brad and Sarah, if you're all listening today. This is a song about their favorite baseball player of all time, and by the name of Roberto Clemente. And Roberto Clemente, just after getting the 3,000th hit of his career, learned of a terrible earthquake in Nicaragua, and Roberto organized some relief aid that he was sending over on some flights, and found out that these flights were being intercepted when they landed by the Nicaraguan military. The junta there was stealing the relief supplies that he was sending and using the food to feed soldiers with, etc. And so Roberto decided to fly over with the next shipment. And unfortunately, his plane went down on New Year's Eve, and the world lost a wonderful human being. This is called Roberto.
Maldonado off the Puerto Rican coast. People sometimes stand there and offer up a toast to the greatest baseball player they ever called their own, who went off on a mission and he never made it home. The earthquake was horrific. The aid was pouring in. Roberto helped to organize a whole plane load to send. The Nicaraguan junta had been looting all it could, so he'd fly with it to make sure it got to all the neighborhoods. It would not pass inspection, the plane that he would hire. Pilot that came with it, his license had expired. A local huckster owned it, and he wasn't sure it flew, but he kept that to himself. The paint on it was new. The plane was overloaded, the cargo not secured. Standard operating procedures ignored. The engine didn't sound right, said the people on the ground. When it took off for Managua, they had to circle back around. Well, people still remember where they were that New Year's Eve when the word began to spread. Hardly anyone believed. Helicopters hovered all throughout the nights, just above the waters, sweeping with their lights. Well, they never found Roberto, and the search went on for days, frantically at first, till they found his leather case. No one could bear to call it off, so they carried on, but the divers never found him. Roberto, he was gone. Punta Maldonado off the Puerto Rican coast. People sometimes stand there looking for the ghost of the greatest baseball player they ever called their own. Went off on a mission and he never made it home.
think I'd like to play a new song. I tried this last week, and I'm going to try it again.
Half the people are looking to rumble, and the other half are spoiling for a fight. The logic that they're using is all jumbled, but who needs facts when you know you're right? Half the people nowadays are bunkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Now half the news you get today is phony, and the other half you get today is fake. But what's real is the independent journalist who gets tortured but refuses to break. Half the people have lost their marbles, and the other half have all lost their minds. On top of that, we've become so heartless. Underneath that all, we must have lost our spines. Half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people have gone crazy, and the other half have all gone mad. Well, I could make a fortune selling bridges if I hadn't sold the last one that I had. People have no idea, and the other half, they haven't got a clue. They'll believe anything anyone will tell them, unless it can be proven to be true. Well, half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Now half the people are talking rubbish, and the other half are all just talking crap. You've got to be careful and remind yourself not to take the bait or step into the trap. Half the people nowadays are bunkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry, and they need to blame somebody for their pain. Half the people are just plain cuckoo, and the other half are just plain Looney Tunes. Bite your tongue, you can't talk sense to any of them. They hate you when you burst their balloons. Half the people nowadays are bunkers, and the other half have all gone insane. Everybody everywhere looks angry. They need to blame somebody. Yeah, they need to blame somebody for their pain.
You know what? I think I want to do another new song. This one's brand new, and the only people who have ever heard it so far are my Patreon supporters. And I suppose this would be a great time to talk about Patreon for a second. And if you're not aware of what Patreon is, it's a wonderful platform that allows for a real community to form around an artist in a way that you can't have on Facebook or any other social media platform. This is a commitment from you and a commitment from me. It's a way of supporting me on a monthly basis, and you can decide on whatever amount that might be, from as low as $1 a month to as high as several million if you want. But you'll get the same access at any level that you might pledge, and your credit card would get billed every month for this. And in exchange, I will make certain things available exclusively to you. Things like brand new songs when I first write them. You'll hear them a good couple of weeks at least before anybody else does, or some background information about some of my songs that I might want to flesh out and share, some photographs, maybe a private concert over Zoom here and there. There's a lot of things that I've got milling around in my brain that I would love to share with my patrons. So hope you'll check out my Patreon page, and keep an eye on the chat window if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, because Barbie, our digital concierge, is dropping in the URLs for things like this. Also would like to let you know that all of my music is available both in CD form through my website, chuckbrodsky.com, and it's also available as digital downloads from bandcamp.com. And on Bandcamp, I'm offering all of my music for whatever you want to pay for it. And if you are in dire straits these days, if you're unemployed because of the COVID crisis like I am, I welcome you to help yourself to all of my music for free. You just enter 0 as the amount you want to pay, and that's cool. If you want to pay something for it, I would welcome that, just as I would welcome any kind of support through tips via PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, any of the other URLs that Barbie will drop in for you. I've lost all of my gigs, at least through the end of August, from March through August, and through the kindness of many people out there who have shown me great amount of love, I am still here. I'm still kicking. I've been able to barely pay my bills, but I've been able to pay them thanks to you guys. So I'm going to keep this up every week until I can get back out on the road, and maybe even beyond that, because I'm really enjoying doing this, and I hope you're enjoying listening. So here's a brand new song.
Things you think you know, they aren't really so, but you insist they're true. A lot of people do. It would shock you if you knew. You'd be angry too, but that takes letting go of the things you think you know. The things you think you know, you believe them even though they can be disproved. You're not even moved. It's not what you believe. You can't even conceive of that first domino. The things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. You go on and blow till you're good and blue. I tell you, even though there's no convincing you, but that's what you don't know. The things you think you do, yeah, that's what you don't know. The things you think you do. The things you think you know were like that long ago, but not so much today. You really have to go back a ways to when there wasn't any gray, and you only had to hope and pray, maintain the status quo. The things you think you know. The things you think you know. Excuse me, but hello, who who's telling you these things? And who's pulling the strings? Well, who knows more than you? None of the experts do. Anyway, there you go, the things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know, the things you think you do. You go on and blow till you're good and blue. I'll tell you even though there's no convincing you. But that's what you don't know, the things you think you do. Yeah, that's what you don't know, the things you think you do. The things you think you know, that warm and cozy glow, it's mostly good for show. Gives you comfort though, you keep stoking the fire to get it going higher. You won't let it lie low, the things you think you know. Well, that's what you don't know, the things you think you do. You go on and blow till you're good and blue. I'll tell you even though there's no convincing you. Well, that's what you don't know, the things you think you do. Yeah, that's what you don't know, things you think you do. That's what you don't know, things you think you do. That's what you don't know, the things you think you do.
Well, I see that it's approaching 4 o'clock, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep on playing. I have another maybe 4 songs I'd like to play. So I hope you stick with me. If you have to go, I understand. There's lots of other things going on. But I hope you stay. This next song is one that's very dear to me. It's about a man named Amnon Weinstein who lives in Tel Aviv. And like his father before him, for many years Amnon has been restoring violins that were destroyed during the Holocaust, or violins that had belonged to people who perished in the Holocaust, and those violins had fallen into disrepair. And when there were 40 of these violins that he had restored, their concert was held in front of the Western Wall in Jerusalem, where the played all 40 of these violins in an orchestra, and the music that was played for that concert was the music of the composers who had been banned by the Nazis. So they brought these instruments and that music back to life. And I knew I wanted to write a song about Amnon, and I started this a few years ago, and I got maybe a verse into it. And then the time came for me to go to Ireland. I lead group tours there, which you may know about. And if you don't know about them, you can read up on them at chuckbrodsky.com under the Ireland and Scotland tours. But I had just written that one verse. I flew over to Ireland, and there happened to be a woman on the tour, in the tour group, who I didn't know yet, but she's from just down the road from me. She lives about 4 miles from my house. And one day we were sitting together on the bus as we were going out seeing some sights, and I knew she played fiddle. So she started to talk about how she had just acquired a Holocaust violin. And I was kind of floored by the coincidence here. And I told her, you won't believe this, but just before this tour, I started a song about a guy who restores Holocaust violins. I'd sure love to see yours when we get back to North Carolina. And she said, absolutely, give me a call. Well, when we got back home, I got caught up in whatever, the business of living and catching up from being away. And I didn't call her for a couple of weeks, but I finished my song. And immediately after I finished my song, I did what I do several times a day. I went on to Craigslist looking at musical instruments to see if there might be something in my area for sale that's really cool and really cheap, and maybe I could find a steal. And when I went there was a Holocaust violin for sale. And I figured this had to be Helen. But the price that she was asking was way more than I could afford. So I thought I'd take a chance, and I sent the seller an email asking, Helen, is this you? And I included the just completed lyrics for that song. And I asked if there's any chance she might be able to come down in price a little bit. Well, 10 minutes later, she wrote me back, and she said, it's yours. We'll work something out, but you have to be the one to have this. So I want to show this to you. This is a restored Holocaust violin. It was not restored by Amnon Weinstein. I don't know. It was somebody in Tennessee, and I don't know who he was. But it's a very interesting instrument. I'll show you the front of it. What's so fascinating about it to me is this scroll at the top and the fact that there are geared tuners. This is very unusual for a violin, except that it was not unusual for violins made in Eastern Europe in the middle 1800s. But I have never seen another one with those kind of tuners. And when I recorded this song for my most recent CD, Them and Us, I wondered who I could get to play that instrument because I really wanted it played on this song. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it had to be me. Only problem was I had never played fiddle in my life before. So I spent a couple of months working hard, teaching myself enough to at least play a couple of lines on it and on the recording of this song at the very end. My niece, Katiana Nardone, plays the primary violin part. But at the end of the song, you can hear a second one come in, and then she drops out, and it's just me for the last line. So this is called Your Violin.
Violin's ready, it's here in the shop. It's got a new bridge and it's got a new top. The neck it was broken, snapped in two, but now it's almost as good as new. I salvaged the splinters the best that I could. Wherever I couldn't, I patched up the wood. Sounds pretty good, plays pretty well. Your violin's ready. Music was silenced, locked in its case. It had to be hidden or not show its face. The stormtroopers came and they kicked in the door, and they found it after they tore up the floor. But just for amusement they forced you to play, and after you finished they took you away. They stomped it to bits and just left it there. Your violin's ready, I made the repairs. The bones of its body were kept in a sack by the neighbor in case you might ever come back. Up in the attic, musty with mold, discovered after the house was sold. It wasn't much more than a bag of debris the day when it was delivered to me. The name inside, was it yours as well? Your violin has a story to tell. So often another appears, like the rest that have found me over the years. Who'd it belong to, and where was it from? Who wore down the back of the neck with their thumb? I take the pieces and I make them whole, healing the body and waking the soul. I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue, in honor of him in remembrance of you. Yeah, I cut and I sand, I bend and I glue in honor of him and remembrance of you.
I have sure made a lot of friends through the years, being a musician, traveling around. I don't think of people as fans, really. It's hard to do that when I've gotten to know so many people so well, so much better than just that level of being fans. So you guys are my friends, and I feel blessed. I'm rich in friends. I want to sing this song for my friends.
Sometimes I sit here in the dark, just light of a screen. Maybe I don't get dressed, have a little more caffeine. Sometimes I stay up late, time goes by. I say what's on my mind, and I hope for a reply. I never stay away long, I start missing all my friends. I post my photographs, use my very best lens. Sometimes the comments never come, sometimes I sit and I wait. Oh, won't you please like me? Is there someone who can relate? Nobody ever writes me letters, I don't know why I have a phone. I got a couple thousand friends now, I don't feel so alone. Sometimes I drop them a line, sometimes they think of me too. They want to know if I'm okay, in just a sentence or two. And I know who cooked Italian, I know who got new shoes, I know who had to pull a tranny, who's away on a cruise. I know who got that dreaded letter, I know who just switched shampoos, I know who's using smiley faces, and I know who's got the blues. I know who likes what, know who's friends with who. I know what everybody just did, what they're planning to do. I know who's having a birthday, I know who just lost their job. I know it rained in Sarasota for a little while and then it stopped. I found a lot of old classmates, people I once knew. Everybody went their own ways, as people these days will do. Some of them got wealthy, and some are living hand to mouth. Some of them are up north still, some have settled in the south. All of my old flames got married, some they got divorced, and of the ones who have fallen, some never got back on the horse. And the ones who did have children, none of them look like me. I hope that everybody's happy, I hope that everybody's free. I know who likes what, know who's friends with who. I know what everybody just did, what they're planning to do. I know who just lost their father and who's decided to adopt. I know it rained in Sarasota for a little while and then it stopped. Prayers for my friend in Uganda, my friends in Israel and Iran, Nova Scotia, Ireland, and Denmark, Lithuania and Japan. Well, I hope someday to meet them, their place or mine. But for now it makes me happy when I see them here online. And I know who got a puppy, I know whose rose bushes died, and the ones who own ponies, sometimes I tell them I can ride. You know, I flirted with some women, well these days how can you tell? Some of them could have been men. And then there was the time when Elvis asked if he could be my friend. I know who likes what, I know who's friends with who, I know what everybody just did, what they're planning to do. I know who's fighting cancer, sometimes I just start to sob. I know it rains in Sarasota for a little while and then it stops. I know it rains in Sarasota for a little while and then it stops. I know it rains in Sarasota for a little while and then it stops. Well, friends, I got two more for you. And this is a newish one. I've been singing it for, probably half a year now, but when I get around to making another CD, which I hope to do fairly soon, this will definitely be on it. I started this in Ireland. You might pick up on the sort of the sway of the language in the song. It was definitely influenced from being over there. I had great fun writing this song. It's gotten increasingly more and more difficult to have a conversation with anybody about things political if they don't happen to agree with you. And, you know, we try so hard on Facebook and elsewhere to convince other people to believe what we believe. And every method I had ever tried had always failed until I came up with this one. I think you'll agree this will work like a charm. After 3 or 4 tries, I poked out his eyes, and that's how I got him to see. To get him to hear, I screamed in his ear, and I gave him the 3rd degree. Well, I sharply berated him, I told him I hated him, I wasn't very kind. I shouted and cussed until I won his trust. Well, that's how I changed his mind. I shunned him, ignored him, I wouldn't look toward him, I only would give him my back. I accused him of lies, would not compromise, I erased him after the fact. I was abrupt, I would often interrupt, and we were volatile when combined. And in stating my case, I blew up in his face, and that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. I blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. Now this man was an ass. I was gonna let him pass, let him take a wide berth of me. But I was right and he was wrong, like I was telling him all along, trying to just get him to see. But he's a this and I'm a that, and so we couldn't have a chat of the friendly and civilized kind. Round after round, I just ground him down. Well, that's how I changed his mind. I stomped on his toes and I punched him in the nose. I was using irony. So sure of the truth, I knocked out his tooth and I kicked him twice in the knee. I won over his his heart with a poisonous dart. And you should have seen me unwind, being overly cruel and with ridicule. Well, that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. Blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. And so I called him a fool, I challenged him to a duel. I threw my white glove in his face, 20 paces and I shot, and I must have hit the spot. Anyway, that's how I pleaded my case. Well, I won in the end, after making him bend. And after all, the papers were signed. In the end, I won. Yeah, that's how it was done. Well, that's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. I blamed him, shamed him, insulted and inflamed him. That's how I changed his mind. Yeah, I blamed him, shamed him, I might have even maimed him. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind. That's how I changed his mind.
I want to thank you all very much for being here today with me and listening to my songs and my stories. I hope you'll remember next week. I'll be doing this every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to say thank you again to our digital concierge, Barbie Angel. And you might want to just look into her. She's got a YouTube channel and Facebook pages. And you might want to check out her poetry and her performance art. What else can I tell you? Oh, something very important. If you're interested, I can do a private virtual house concert for you, just like this, over my Zoom account. I just did one last night, and we had a great time with some folks based in San Francisco, and I'd love to do more of these. So if this is something you might be interested in, all you need to do is pull a group together. It could be people who live all over. They don't need to live in your area. But get a bunch of households together, and I'll stream to you. We'll do a private show. We'll have a great time. We'll keep the mics open so I can hear you applaud, and I can hear you call out requests and stuff. And at the end of the show, we'll have a little question and answer thing. And before the show, you can have time to socialize with everybody. I'll open up the meeting half hour early. So I think it's a great idea, and I hope you do too. So get in touch with me. Either email me at chuck@chuckbrodsky.com, or you can email me through Facebook, or you can message me through Facebook. But it's something we can schedule on very short notice, and I just love doing them. So, see, I had a couple other notes, but I think that pretty well covers it. I'm going to finish off with the song that I'll probably finish every show with. It's a song that's been covered by a lot of people through the years, many people that you would not have ever heard of, and some that you would have. My good friend David Lamont in Black Mountain, North Carolina, recorded it a long time ago. So did Sarah Hickman down in Texas. Kathy Mattea recorded it in a film once. Most recently, the African Children's Choir of Uganda recorded this song. And if you had asked the 21-year-old me who wrote the song if I could ever have imagined one of my songs making its way to Africa, that would have been the furthest possibility in my mind. But I wrote the song after hitchhiking from Philadelphia to San Francisco, and I wrote it my first day in San Francisco, and it has become more and more true every day. So I want to sing this song to both of my parents. I normally dedicate this to just my mom, because Dad has 2 songs written about him. Mom always wonders why I haven't written a song about her. And here's the reason. Because if I were to write a song about my mother, it would be like 4 or 5 hours long. There's just so much wonderful stuff that I would be saying in that song, and I wouldn't know where to stop. Same with my dad, but I've already written you 2 songs, Dad. And so I'm going to dedicate this song to both of you. And if you know it at home and you feel like singing along, I'll hear you. Hope you join me next week.
Well, I hope I see you later, 'cause it's time for me to go. That's my ride that just pulled over, and it sure was good to know you. So go answer your calling, go and fill somebody's cup. And when you see an angel falling, won't you stop and help them up? We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. Sometimes you stumble, and sometimes you'll just lie down. And sometimes you'll get lonely with all the ace people around. You might shiver when the wind blows, and you might get blown away. You might lose a little color, you might lose a little faith. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going, and we show each other signs. So thank you for the water. Thought I was gonna die out here in the desert, but you quenched my thirst. Let's break a little bread together. Got a little manna, and it was a gift from someone who was passing by and offered me a lift. We are each other's angels, and we meet when it is time. We keep each other going and show each other signs.
Have a great week. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate it.